This is the Galaxy S25 Ultra, and believe it or not, it's now been out and available to purchase for a whole year. And for those who missed it, after I finished reviewing the Pixel 10 Pro last month, which was officially my last phone review of 2025, the phone that I decided to stick my SIM card back into to use as my main everyday device was none other than the S25 Ultra itself. And now that I've been back using it again for over a month, I've got to say it is still a cracker of a device. But it's also far from perfect. And so, given that it's been an entire year since this phone was released, and given that the launch of the S26 series is no doubt right around the corner, I felt like it was as good a time as ever to do one final video unpacking all of my thoughts, both good and bad, about the S25 Ultra. So, let's dive in. Let's start with the design, because at first glance, you might think that there's not much worth saying here, but there's actually 3 points that I want to make regarding the S25 Ultra's design and build. And 2 of those are related to this camera unit on the back. Firstly, remember all those initial controversies surrounding these supposed glued-on camera rings? Yeah, as suspected, that was absolutely overstated, because how many reports of these things falling off organically have you come across over the past year? Not very many, I'm guessing. So that ended up being a total non-issue as far as I'm concerned. But then on the other hand, I gotta say, the side-to-side wobble when using this phone flat on a table has been so frustrating to come back to. And anytime I complain about this in any phone review that I do, everyone always has a go at me in the comments saying something like, mate, just put the phone in a case and stop complaining. And okay, maybe it's a little out of touch, but I personally do not like using my phone in a case. But what I do like doing is using my phone flat on a table. But with the S25 Ultra, thanks to those heavily protruding cameras on just the one side on the back, it does make for a very unenjoyable experience. And judging by the leaks, it looks like this might get even worse with the S26 Ultra. Now, is it a deal breaker? Obviously not, but after years and years of Samsung persisting with these side-mounted cameras, I would have loved something a little more symmetrical to balance it out just that little bit better. But then the third thing that I've really noticed coming back to the S25 Ultra in terms of its build, and this is most likely due to switching back to it after using 3 devices that do support the feature, but it's the lack of Qi 2 magnetic charging. Like when I first reviewed the Pixel 10, I treated myself to a new Qi 2 wireless charger, which I was then able to use with the iPhone 17 Pro and the Pixel 10 Pro afterwards. And so not being able to use that with the S25 Ultra has been a bit of a bummer. Fingers crossed the rumors are true and we get proper Qi 2 support with the upcoming S26 series. One thing that has really surprised me coming back to the S25 Ultra is the fact that this is still probably the best display on a phone that you can get on the market. Like a year ago, I said that Samsung needed to be hard at work making sure that their next phone got a nice bump up in terms of display specs because the competition was catching up. But geez, Apple was the only other company that adopted anything remotely similar to Samsung's anti-reflective coating, and even it wasn't as good as the coating on the S25 Ultra. And so coming back to this phone with this fantastic display has been surprisingly great. It's still very bright. It seems to be able to sustain that brightness in sunny conditions for longer than other phones in my experience. It's also incredibly sharp, and that anti-reflective coating is still unmatched. That is a winning combo in my book. Now, a year on, how does this phone's battery life compare to all the other phones released since? Well, up front, this was an area that I was expecting the phone to age like milk, but to be completely honest, it's actually held up pretty well. Now, does this phone have great industry-leading battery life? No, it absolutely does not. But is it any worse than the Pixel 10 Pro or the iPhone 17 Pro or any other phone that I personally used and reviewed last year? No, it's not. Now, to be fair, I haven't used any of the very recently released silicon carbon battery-powered phones that are apparently doing serious numbers like the OnePlus 15 or the Xiaomi 17 Pro. So, take this insight with a bit of a grain of salt. But yeah, as far as my experience goes, it still seems to be mostly on par with the majority of mainstream devices available right now. I will say, if leaks are to be believed, then unfortunately it looks as though Samsung are once again sticking with 5,000 mAh for the S26 Ultra. And so you've got to assume that if that does indeed prove to be the case, then that's not going to go down too well given what the competition are now putting out. Now, real quick, if you've been enjoying the various motion graphics that I've been using throughout this video, well, they've all actually come from the sponsor of this video, Storyblocks. If you haven't heard of it, Storyblocks is a stock media subscription service, and I think it's most commonly known for offering unlimited access to high quality stock videos and images. But what a lot of people don't know is that it also offers literally thousands of pre-made customizable video templates for all of the popular editing programs. And as I said, that's where I sourced all of the motion graphics that I've been using throughout this video. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, Storyblocks has also got royalty-free music too. And in fact, literally every bit of music that you've heard throughout this video has been taken from Storyblocks' incredible library of royalty-free music. And they have clear-cut licensing, meaning anything that you download from Storyblocks is 100% royalty-free, pre-licensed, and ready to use so that you can focus on creating and not having to double-check your legal rights. So to get started with unlimited stock media downloads at one set price, head to storyblocks.com/Sam Beckman or click the first link down in the description below. Okay, from there we have the cameras, and I'm going to try and keep this one quick because whilst I think most of us would agree that the S25 Ultra isn't necessarily a standout performer in this area, what with the likes of Xiaomi, Vivo, and Oppo really leveling up in this department across the last year, the one thing that I do want to give Samsung credit for is just how consistent and reliable the camera experience is on the S25 Ultra. It's just really hard to get a bad shot out of this phone, and more than that, the camera app just works. Like, the phone barely gets warm to the touch during long capture sessions, which is what I experienced with the Xiaomi 15 Pro last year. And there are also no jitters or fluidity issues, which is what you tend to experience on Google Pixel phones. There's only two significant areas of improvement that I'd love for Samsung to address, which may well in fact help Samsung to actually climb its way back to at least close to the top in terms of camera performance. But the first is obviously the 3x telephoto lens, which just pales in comparison to the other lenses on the phone and is almost worth avoiding using unless you're in the very best of lighting conditions. But then even the selfie camera is actually noticeably lackluster too, especially when you compare it to that incredible ultra-wide selfie lens that we got on the entire iPhone 17 lineup. That said, what I will say is that in the Android world, I actually think that the S25 Ultra offers the closest experience to what you get when shooting with an iPhone. Sure, photos might not be visually outstanding with loads and loads of character, but the cameras just work time after time, which to me is all I really want and need out of a phone's cameras. Alright, last but absolutely not least, let's get to the real reason why the S25 Ultra is the phone that I like using more than anything else released in the past year. And of course, I'm talking about the software. And it is crazy to me how far One UI has come in the past few years, from a point where it was probably my least favorite version of Android to now being easily my favorite. It just appeals to me in all the right ways. It looks good, it feels fluid, and it comes packed to the rafters with customizations galore. That said, there are two things that I want to mention about the software on this phone and One UI in general. Firstly, when I say it is my favorite version of Android, I'm only basing this off experience with Samsung's flagship phones. I haven't used any of their A-series devices in several years now, but back when I did, it was a known fact amongst tech enthusiasts that the One UI version they had was not as well optimized compared to the version that the flagships got. And whilst that may no longer be the case, I can't say with any real certainty either way. And so again, just know that I'm only specifically praising the version of One UI that runs on Samsung's flagship phones. The other thing is that after using a bucket load of phones with, again, wildly different software skins across the past year, I was kind of assuming that coming back to One UI would be a breath of fresh air, but I will say it hasn't been quite as fluid as I remembered. And I think that's probably because pretty much every other phone I used in 2025 was also really, really good in terms of fluidity. Like, there is just still the occasional scenario where when I've left an app open for a prolonged period of time, then when I come back to it and go to swipe back home, it feels like there's this slight delay in the phone responding to my touch. And that's not really my experience on other phones. Or like swiping to expand notifications on the lock screen often looks and feels a little janky, and there are just a few other instances of this around the OS where you think, okay, that probably could do with a little tidying up. But that said, given all the customizations that it offers, given that it also doesn't automatically hide notifications from the lock screen like pretty much every Chinese smartphone available right now, and given that in terms of performance, this phone is rock solid, then I'm very okay with a few minor instances of a lack of polish. Although I will just add, in case anyone from the One UI software development team is watching this video, if you could please bring back the swipe to invoke assistant gesture and also update your really janky and pretty bad face unlock implementation after years of me complaining about it, then that would be greatly appreciated. But that's really all she wrote, and whilst it's definitely not perfect, the S25 Ultra really does just appeal to me, and with a few refinements like Qi 2 magnetic charging, improved 3x telephoto and selfie lenses, and maybe them dealing with that annoying side-to-side wobble when using it flat on a table, then it could pretty much be the perfect phone for me. Anyway, let me know what you think of the S25 Ultra a year after its release. Do you think Samsung should be praised for putting out yet another reliable high-end flagship? Or do you think I've gone easy on them and that they shouldn't be resting on their laurels so much? Either way, if you enjoyed the video, then a sub would be greatly appreciated. But aside from that, thank you all very much for watching, and I will catch you later.